Welcome, and thank you for being here for our whole grain and fiber session 1. We will actually be having 3 sessions, and so this is the first session of 3 sessions. And so today we will be talking about the importance of making half of your grains whole. And as you can see here, I have my plate, and I always like to show this just to show how we're supposed to be making our grains. A quarter of our plate should be grains, and we should be making half of those grains whole. And we will be discussing on why, on the benefits of whole grains, and in our future classes we're also going to be discussing on what a whole grain is. And also one other thing that I always like to touch on is the importance of making half of our plate fruits and vegetables. But today we will be focusing on grains. And I have some grains here. I have 6 grains here, which I like to always review. These are some of our common grains that we do like to review at every class that we do. So here we have steel cut oats. Steel cut oats are very, very healthy for us. They do contain a lot of fiber. Oats also contain 2 types of fiber, soluble and insoluble. Now, as you could see, this steel cut oats is a little different than our instant oatmeal. Usually when we think of oatmeal, oats, we think about the instant oatmeal or our 1-minute oats, or even I think the 5-minute oats. They're flatter, they've been processed already. Now steel cut oats have not been through that process yet. So they do tend to be a little bit better for us. However, they do take a little bit longer to cook, but it is well worth it. Now our second grain, which is actually one of my favorite grains, is the brown rice, because I always tend to swap out rice with brown rice, and we're so used to it already that we don't even notice it. But brown rice you could see it has like a little layer over each little grain of rice, and that's basically the bran, which we're going to be talking about more about what makes a grain whole. But if you are cooking brown rice, you need to make sure that you cook it a little bit longer. It does take a little bit longer. If you do have a rice cooker, it does tend to cook a lot. It's a lot easier because you just set up the rice cooker and the rice cooker does the job for you. But if you're cooking it at home, maybe about 10 more minutes than regular rice. We have barley. So barley's also a grain that's really high in fiber. Barley does tend to take a little bit longer to cook also, but it is really, really good in salads. You could use it in salads and soups and so many different ways. And barley it's readily available at a lot of stores, so it's not something that's out of the ordinary that we have to go hunt for. Now we also have whole wheat berries. Whole wheat berries are also very healthy for us. They have a lot of fiber. So yeah, and these have a lot of fiber. And this is something that we're not used to seeing. It is available at stores, but we're just not used to seeing it a lot. I know a lot of us don't tend to cook a lot with them, but it is a good healthy alternative also. Now we also have bulgur. Bulgur is very similar to the whole wheat berries. It's already been processed a little bit, so as you can see, it looks like it's crushed up already, which makes the cooking a little bit easier. And bulgur, it's also really good in different ways. You could have it by itself with some seasonings. You could have it in salads, and you could have it in so many different ways. And the last one, which is actually one of my favorites also, is the quinoa. So quinoa, it does tend to look a little bit like birdseed, but once you cook it, it fluffs up real nice, and it has a beautiful flavor to it, even without anything. And quinoa, you could use it in salads. You could eat it by itself with seasonings. You could cook it with any vegetable that you like. And quinoa, I could say, is one of our only grains that's a complete protein. So quinoa is one of those grains that you definitely want to try. And we do actually make a salad, a quinoa and black bean salad, that is really, really delicious. And we'll be doing that some other day. So what are some of the other whole grains that we could swap our regular foods for? So for example, like if you're consuming white bread, you could swap it out with whole wheat bread or whole grain bread. Now if you're cooking pasta, you could swap out the regular pasta with whole wheat pasta. Now, for the oats and the oatmeal, of course, sometimes You could, if you're using regular oatmeal, you could try the steel cut oats, which the regular oatmeal is okay also. But you know, if you want to try, if you're up to it, go ahead and try the steel cut oats. Now, corn and popcorn. Corn and popcorn is something that we do tend to underestimate. A lot of times we think that it's just in the fruit and vegetable area, but it's actually, it could actually be a grain. It's actually a grain, and there's so many ways that we could swap it out. We could have corn tortillas instead of the regular white flour tortillas. We could have popcorn, and that's a whole grain. So there is very many options that we could, very different, there's many options, many different foods that we could swap out so that we could add more whole grains to our diet. So one of the reasons why we want to consume more whole grains is the fiber. I think that everyone already kind of knows that one of the reasons why we do want to, you know, for example, do more brown rice or add the quinoa or the oatmeal is because we need that fiber. Now, there is other reasons though. One of those reasons is, for example, it does tend to have a gentler effect in our blood sugar. So, for example, if you were to consume something that is like a pastry, a bagel, something that's white flour, then your blood sugar will spike up a lot faster, and it'll cause a more dramatic change in your blood sugar. Now, when you consume these whole grains, it does tend to have a gentler effect on your blood sugar. So for that same reason, for people that have diabetes, it is really highly recommended that if they do have grains in their diet, that they swap them out for whole grains so that they can have that gentler effect. Also, it does help prevent diabetes, and it helps prevent other illnesses like cancers and high blood pressure. It's just so, there's so many benefits to them. But again, in our future classes, we will be talking more about what is a whole grain, how to know if it's a whole grain, and also we'll be talking more in detail about benefits and on why we need the fiber. But for today, this is pretty much it, and thank you. Have a good day.